Welcome back. The president is reportedly weighing a bold move to prevent Zohran Mamdani from becoming New York City's next mayor. According to the New York Times, the president has had a direct phone call with Andrew Cuomo, now running as an independent, about potentially joining forces to stop Mamdani from taking City Hall. Because make no mistake here, folks, this is shaping up to be a national showdown. Capitalism versus socialism. And the far left is right at the gate.
New Yorkers do not want a mayor who is working in tandem with the president to subvert the will of the people of this city. All of it comes back from the understanding that for Donald Trump, the victory that we would deliver for working class New Yorkers is one that threatens the very basis of so much of his politics.
I'll start by saying that I am a New Yorker, and I do want the president getting involved here. One of the things that he told us when he was running for office in this last election cycle was that he was going to save New York City, because over the course of the pandemic and after, this place has become a complete cesspool. And that is why Mayor Adams has now worked with him to clean things up a little bit, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. And I do not want a socialist running things to bring us back to de Blasio land all over again and then some. So I'll come to my other fellow New Yorkers. David is one. Dagan lives in Jersey City now, but you went through that pandemic trauma with me, and I'm sorry, I'm just not over it.
No,
I don't want to go back.
I've lived in New York more than 3 decades, and I finally got the hell out. And New Jersey is a garden state compared to what this place could become. But go ahead.
Yeah. So getting back to the president, obviously, you know, joining forces, David, with somebody like Andrew Cuomo may not seem like the most likely alignment. And the president has said before that he wouldn't get involved in this. But maybe as he's seeing it progress and Mamdani going up in the polls, he's taking a little bit of a different, tack.
Well, and I just want to say something about, yes, he's a socialist. For once you have somebody admitting they're a socialist, but the point is that he's much worse, as the president keeps saying, than this democratic socialism. No, I'm just a European socialist. No. He is hardcore. But another thing he is hardcore at, he really believes in the global intifada, which you saw an example of right in the heart of America, in St. Louis, where they were firebombing these cars that were owned by various Israeli transplants who are living here now. And he has been given several opportunities to disavow his former pronouncement that he's in favor of the global intifada. He hasn't done it. So he is this horrible mix of socialism, which has, that alone should be a disqualifier to become the mayor of the financial capital of the United States. But this toxic mix of jihadist Islam with the socialism, which we've been seeing all over. And of course, you've seen several big cities in Europe that have been attacked by the same mix. And it has been much to the detriment of these cities over there. It's always been over there, but it is coming over here.
That's
and
right.
In fact,
Yes,
it is
that's
already
right.
here right now. And this global intifada business is no joke. They're serious about it. They're doing it in places like St. Louis. What could happen here in New York is anybody's guess, but we know where this guy falls. He falls on the side of global intifada.
So I just want to follow up on the point you were making with Dagan about the state of New York City as we know it. This morning, I had a group of 30 high school students from Mitchell County, North Carolina, come in for a tour. And I was so worried that one of these kids would get pickpocketed or beaten up or something would happen to them. Fortunately, nothing happened. But that's just by the grace of God that nothing bad happened, because a lot of terrible things go on in New York City every single day. I was in the city this past Saturday, walking out in front of Grand Central Terminal, and there was a woman who was naked except for the beach hat she had on her head. She was sitting on the ground on the sidewalk begging, and I thought, what is going on here? This isn't just the middle of the city. That's an iconic landmark, right? And it's just so dispiriting to see what's going on in the city, because this can be a great, great city and certainly the center of capitalism. But right now, it's sucking wind.
Jerry, that's a good anecdote, but I'll one-up you and say I've seen people literally take their pants down and sit on a public sewer and use it as a toilet. And that is the state of affairs. I think it was Monday or Tuesday night, rush hour, 6:30 p.m. Chelsea subway. Woman is just trying to get up the stairs, and a guy comes up behind her and stabs her. This is the world we're living in. It's going to make it better to defund the police?
No, of course not. I mean, listen, you guys don't know just how bad it can get. I arrived in New York in 1975.
That's what I was going to say, Charles. Go ahead.
Woo! I mean, it is. If you think it's scary now, Jackie, it could get so. I mean, really, where you couldn't. I don't even know if we could come to work. We would have to work remote, honestly, to even try to brave yourself to come. I mean, just the things that I've seen over the years and the massive improvement. And it's so crazy. I think a lot of transplant New Yorkers, though, you know, because you look at these college-educated folks who voted for this guy. That's what's crazy. A lot of these, they come here and they're ideological. There was this article I read a week ago about too many of these folks think they're elite and they're not getting what they want in life, and they're trying to team up with those who aren't elite and form this sort of grievance. This is sort of the backbone of what Mamdani's thing, but it's not just in New York. Obviously, Seattle, Chicago, Minneapolis, it's probably Chicago be next. And you know, on one hand, I try to understand what's driving people. I mean, a lack of history, a lack of knowledge. You know, certainly in school, this might sound pretty good on paper. Not the infantada part, but everything else, the socialism part. Oh, it's because the word they always use is fair. But it is so frightening. Now, I will say, I hope that Trump does get involved, and I think there could be a greater groundswell of GOP-leaning New Yorkers than there's ever been. Just on an anecdotal thing, again, I was at the Frick a week ago. And I could not believe how many people came up to me. And the Frick, which, like, I think a few years ago, you know, in the heart of Manhattan, liberalism, like, if anyone did say hi, they'd been like, psst.
Yeah, I get
You know what I mean? Now they're like, hey, you know, I'm like, what? This is not the Manhattan that I knew, right? So I think there's enough people who aren't afraid to say that they're afraid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Before, the intimidation factor was huge. You couldn't even say that you lean Republican. You couldn't even say that I like Donald Trump. And now you could do it in public at the Frick. And if you can do it there, maybe they need to team up because
There's an Upper West Side Republican club with literally hundreds of members who show up.
Yeah.
And I said, Upper West Side, are you sure that's what you mean? They're like, yes, it is.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. So there's a counter force to all of this. Just hope that it shows up in time before the election.
Right. I know what you're talking about, that force. I felt it in the presidential election voting here last time. We certainly saw Republicans come out in force for the governor's election, too. It wasn't enough with Lee Zeldin, but it was close. So the question is, will they be here and will they show up to the polls? Because for some reason, since Giuliani, they can't get over the finish line on the other side.
Maybe Trump can pull them over.
I think ultimately to learn its lesson, and I mean this city, and all of the CEOs who keep their businesses here, and like during the rioting of 2020, and people who were forced to go to work and go into the office, businesses that have turned a blind eye to their employees being in harm's way. I think that I would love to see President Trump just stand back and go, if you want to vote for this socialist who doesn't believe in police, who wants the government instead to run your grocery stores just like they run hospitals here, vote for it. Because people need on this soil to experience the devastation of that. And ultimately, every single CEO needs to be called out, starting with Jamie Dimon, who's building this giant totem to himself down the street
That
from here.
thing is so ugly and scary. Who the hell approved that architect? I don't want to divert too much anyway.
But how bad can it get? In 1990, David brought this up. 2,262 murders in New York. Last year, it was just 382. I mean, those were 382 lives that should never have been lost. But at the peak, there were 6 times the number of murders that we saw last year. There were more than 3,100 rapes in 1990. And there were more than 100,000 robberies. Again, 6 times the number than we saw last year. How bad can it get? Because a lot of what you're seeing is mental illness. Yeah. And the mental illness we're seeing in every way, shape, and form. The gunman who murdered those 4 individuals last week, seriously, violently, mentally ill. The man who tried to kidnap that child down in Northern Virginia, seriously mentally ill. And until you start putting these people in hospitals and locking them up and forcing treatment upon them in some way, which Supreme Court decision in the 70s makes it difficult, but they need to start putting these people behind bars and treating them. That's the only way that you're going to make the streets safer.
Making it worse, they're hopped up on this super THC marijuana that's going around. And this gunman, you talk about the gunman who was here, he had been smoking a lot of that very high potent.
It's so powerful.
It's not your grandpa's marijuana, believe me. And it is you can't go down any street in Manhattan without smelling
I thought they were selling it in the building for a moment.
Well,
I mean,
the issue with the issue with the THC is that it triggers the psychotic episodes.
Absolutely.
But even if you stop using the drug, you still are permanently schizophrenic.
Baseline.
But dual diagnosis is a huge problem. And until you start putting people in hospitals and we have no beds, it'll never change.
Well, the point you're making is partially that also people that are running the city just address the wrong problems over and over again because they're not really interested in getting to the root causes and fixing it.